The meeting had taken 3 years to arrange. Representatives from 47 different alien species gathered on a massive space station called Sanctuary 7. The station floated in empty space, far from any star system, chosen because it belonged to no one. Inside, the halls were wide and bright, built to make all kinds of aliens comfortable. Ambassador Kyle Morrison arrived from Earth 2 days before the main meeting. He brought a small team of diplomats with him. Humans were new to this galactic community. They had only met aliens 15 years ago. Most species still thought of humans as primitive newcomers who barely knew how to travel between stars. The reason for this summit was serious. A powerful empire called the Krell Dominion had been taking over smaller civilizations. They kept expanding, pushing into territory that belonged to others. War seemed close. The Galactic Council hoped to make peace before billions died in fighting. The Krell had agreed to come to the peace talks, but they made one strange demand that confused everyone. They wanted to meet a human soldier, not a general or an officer. They wanted a regular Marine, someone from the bottom ranks. Ambassador Morrison could not understand why. The Krell were an ancient warrior race. Their empire covered 1,000 worlds. They had been fighting wars when humans still lived in caves. Why would they care about one ordinary human soldier? But Earth Command decided to honor the request. They chose Corporal Danny Hayes. He was 26 years old and had served in the Marines for 4 years. He was a good soldier, calm under pressure, and he had seen real combat during a fight with space pirates called the Vrex. But there was nothing special about him. He was just a regular Marine doing his job. Danny sat in a small waiting room next to the main council chamber. He wore his dress uniform, the dark blue jacket clean and pressed. A few medals decorated his chest, nothing impressive by military standards. His hands rested on his knees. Despite all his training, he felt fear growing in his stomach. He was about to walk into a room full of aliens. Some of them saw humans as weak. Others saw them as potential enemies, and the Krell specifically asked for him. He had no idea why they wanted him there. No one had explained it to him. The door opened. A young aide, human like him, stuck her head in. "They're ready for you, Corporal." Danny stood up. He straightened his uniform and took a deep breath. His drill instructor's voice echoed in his memory. "When you're scared, you don't run. You square your shoulders and do your duty." He walked out of the waiting room. The corridor ahead stretched for what looked like 100 meters. The floor was polished so bright he could almost see his reflection. His boots made clicking sounds with each step. The sound echoed off the walls. Everything was quiet except for his footsteps. Ambassador Morrison had briefed him yesterday. He had shown Danny pictures of different alien species. He had explained the basic layout of the council chamber, but nothing could really prepare someone for what Danny was about to see. The massive doors at the end of the corridor slid open. Danny stepped through. The council chamber was enormous. It was shaped like a circle, with seats rising up on all sides like a sports stadium. Hundreds of aliens sat in different sections. As Danny entered, they all turned to look at him. The room became completely silent. Danny had never felt so exposed in his life. Every eye in the place was on him. He could see the Quillari in their section. They looked like living crystals, their bodies catching the light and throwing rainbow colors. In another section sat the Thaxians, small creatures that looked like insects, their bodies making nervous clicking sounds. The Drakon were there too, massive reptiles with scales like armor. And directly across from where Danny entered, in the place of highest honor, sat the Krell delegation. They were huge. Even sitting down, they looked dangerous. Each Krell stood nearly 3 meters tall. Their skin was covered in thick scales colored deep red or black. They had 4 arms instead of 2, each ending in clawed hands. Their eyes glowed like hot coals. These were apex predators, the most feared warriors in the galaxy. Danny walked down the central aisle. The platform where he was supposed to stand waited in the exact center of the chamber. His heart pounded so hard he thought everyone could probably hear it. But his face stayed calm. His back stayed straight. The Marine Corps had trained him to function even when he was terrified. As he got closer to the platform, Danny noticed something odd. Many of the aliens looked uncomfortable. The crystal-like Quillari were vibrating in a way that their species used to show fear. The Thaxians had backed up to the rear of their section. Even some of the Draken, who were supposed to be brave warriors themselves, looked nervous. Danny reached the platform and stood at attention. He kept his eyes forward, not staring at any particular alien, trying to look professional and calm. The lead Krell rose from his seat. He was covered in scars from old battles. Danny had been told his name was War Leader Kreeth. When the Krell spoke, a translation device turned his growling voice into English that Danny could understand. "The human Marine has arrived," Kreeth announced. His voice filled the chamber. There was something in his tone that Danny could not quite identify. It almost sounded like respect, but that made no sense. Ambassador Morrison stepped forward from where the human delegation sat. "This is Corporal Danny Hayes of the Earth Marine Corps, as you requested. War Leader Kreeth, I have to be honest. We don't understand why you asked for this." Kreeth stared at Danny. The Krell's glowing eyes did not blink. "Then I will explain to the Council. 3 months ago, one of our patrols found a human military ship in our territory. The ship did not run away. It did not surrender. It fought. For 18 hours, that one small ship held off 5 of our destroyers. When we finally forced our way onto the ship, we expected to find at least 100 elite soldiers defending it." An alien from the Quillari section spoke up. Her voice sounded like small bells ringing. Ambassador Lyra was her name, Danny remembered from his briefing. "War Leader Kreeth, please forgive our confusion. Many species show courage when they are afraid. This is not unique to humans." Kreeth turned to face her. When he spoke, there was something almost like wonder in his voice. "You do not understand. It is not just courage. Let me show you what we discovered." A holographic display appeared above the center platform, floating in the air. Images and data began to show. Danny recognized some of the pictures from Earth history. "Humans come from a death world," Kreeth began. "Their planet Earth is rated as a Class 9 hazard by our standards. The gravity is extreme. Dangerous animals are everywhere. The diseases and bacteria would kill most species within days. Humans did not just survive on this planet. They conquered it. They became the dominant species." The display showed images of Earth. Lions with their huge teeth. Bears standing 3 meters tall. Sharks swimming in the oceans. Venomous snakes. Then it showed ancient humans hunting these animals, fighting them, surviving against all odds. "But biology is only part of the story," Kreeth continued. "What truly makes humans different is how their minds work. Most intelligent species evolved as prey animals. Some evolved as predators in balanced environments. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. They do not have speed like the Vrex. They do not have strength like the Draken. They do not have natural weapons like the Krell. What they have is the ability to refuse to quit." New images appeared in the hologram. Human soldiers from different time periods. Ancient warriors with swords and shields. Modern soldiers with advanced weapons. Battles where humans were outnumbered but fought anyway. Last stands that became legendary stories. "A Krell warrior fights with honor and fury," Kreeth said. "But when we know a battle is lost, we retreat. We will fight another day. This is logical. This is how you survive. Humans do not have this logic. When a human decides something is worth protecting, they will fight past the point of reason. They will fight past the point where survival is possible. They will fight when wounded, when outnumbered, when everyone knows they cannot win." Danny shifted his weight slightly. He felt uncomfortable being discussed like he was a specimen in a zoo. But he stayed quiet. This was not his meeting. He was just supposed to stand here. A Thaxian representative moved forward, making nervous clicking sounds. Surely this is a genetic flaw. Their survival instincts must be broken. That is what we thought at first, Kreith replied. But then we looked deeper into human psychology. Humans have something they call imagination. They can picture futures that do not exist yet. They can work toward those imagined futures even when everything seems impossible. They can believe in ideas so strongly that they will die to protect those ideas. Freedom, justice, honor, protecting others who cannot protect themselves, these are not just words to humans, they are things worth dying for. The hologram changed again. Danny felt his blood turn cold. The display now showed footage from the Vrex incident. The footage was from the ship Kreith had mentioned earlier. Danny could see human Marines fighting in narrow corridors. They were outnumbered at least 5-1. Their weapons were not as powerful as the Krell weapons. They had to know they would lose, but they kept fighting. We lost 43 Krell warriors to subdue 12 humans, Kreith said quietly. In our culture, such casualties are only acceptable when fighting an enemy force 3 times larger with equal equipment. These humans had inferior weapons. They were trapped on their own ship. Victory was impossible. They knew this. They fought anyway. Ambassador Morrison spoke up. His voice was careful, diplomatic. War leader, with respect, you are describing desperation. Any animal will fight when it is trapped in a corner. No, Kreith said firmly. A cornered animal fights to escape. These humans were not fighting to escape. They were fighting to protect their ship's computer systems. They wanted to prevent us from learning where Earth was located. They wanted to keep our forces from discovering Earth's defenses. They fought not to save themselves, but to protect billions of other humans they would never meet. Tell me, Ambassador Morrison, how common is this behavior among your people? Morrison was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke quietly. More common than you might think. Exactly, Kreith said. This is why we demanded this demonstration today. Look at Corporal Hayes. He is one soldier. He has no political power. He has no special abilities or genetic modifications. Yet he walked into this chamber knowing he would face the military representatives of dozens of species. He came alone. He came because his commanders ordered him to come. And he will stand there, afraid but unmoving, for as long as his duty requires. An old Dracon female rose slowly from her seat. Her name was Ambassador Sarix, Danny recalled. Her species had been aggressive conquerors once, though they had become more peaceful over the centuries. War Leader Kreith, Sarix said. Her voice was deep and rumbling. Are you saying that humanity is a threat to the galaxy? Are you telling us we should fear them? I am stating facts, Kreith replied. The Krell Dominion has existed for 3,000 years. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. We have fought every type of warrior this galaxy has produced. In all that time, we have never encountered a species like humanity. They are physically weak compared to many species. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. Their territory covers only 15 light years, and yet they may be the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. Sounds of alarm and confusion rippled through the chamber. Different species made their various sounds of surprise. Danny felt his face flush with heat. He had not signed up for this. He had not asked to be held up as some kind of monster in front of the entire galactic community. Kreith turned back to Danny. Tell me, Corporal, if I ordered you to fight me right now, here in this chamber, what would you do? Danny's throat felt dry, but he found his voice. It came out steady, professional. Sir, I would respectfully decline. I am here as a representative of Earth, not as a soldier ready for combat. And if I threaten to harm your ambassador? Ambassador Morrison looked stunned. His mouth opened, but no words came out at first. Finally, he found his voice. War Leader, the Krell have been demanding expansion rights for months. You have been negotiating from a position of strength. Your military is one of the most powerful in the galaxy. Why would you give up everything you have been asking for? Kreeth turned to face the entire assembly. His scarred face was serious, almost grim. Because I have seen what will happen if we do not choose peace now. Let me explain something to this council. Humanity currently controls 36 worlds. Their total population is perhaps 20 billion. They have been part of the galactic community for only 15 years. Their military has maybe 3 million active soldiers. By any logical measurement, they are insignificant. They should not matter in galactic politics. He paused, letting his words sink in. But humans reproduce quickly. They adapt to new situations faster than any species in our records. Their technology advances at a rate that our analysts find deeply disturbing. Right now, they are weak. In 50 years, they will be a major power in this region of space. In 100 years, they could dominate this entire spiral arm of the galaxy. And here is what terrifies the Krell more than anything else. Kreeth pointed at Danny. Every single one of those 20 billion humans has this same trait. This same refusal to quit. This same willingness to die for abstract ideas. Imagine an empire of billions, all with this mindset. Imagine trying to conquer people who simply refuse to accept defeat, no matter how many times you beat them. Imagine fighting enemies who care more about protecting others than protecting themselves. A Vrex representative, a lean creature with silver scales, spoke up. But war leader, the Krell are superior warriors. Your technology is centuries ahead of human technology. How could they possibly threaten you? You are thinking like a logical being, Kreeth said. You are thinking that superior force wins battles. This is true against any other species. But let me tell you what happens when you fight humans. You win the first battle. You probably win the second and third battles too. Your forces are better equipped, better trained in many ways. You should win easily. Kreeth began pacing, his forearms moving as he spoke. But humans do not surrender after losing battles. They learn from each defeat. They adapt. They change their tactics. And they keep coming back. Every battle you win costs you resources, soldiers, time. Every battle they lose teaches them how to fight you better. And they will fight you forever if necessary. They will fight for generations if they must. Because humans do not think in terms of winning or losing a war. They think in terms of principles that must be defended. He stopped pacing and faced the council again. The Krell Dominion has won thousands of wars. We know how to fight. We know how to conquer. But we also know when a fight is not worth the cost. If we went to war with humanity now, we would probably win. We could take Earth. We could occupy their colonies, but the cost would be enormous. And then what? Would they surrender peacefully? Would they accept Krell rule? Kreeth looked at Danny again. No, they would fight as insurgents. They would sabotage our facilities. They would attack our supply lines. They would make every day of occupation cost us lives and resources, and they would never stop. Not in our lifetimes, not in our children's lifetimes. They would pass down their resistance through generations, teaching their young to fight until either we left or we killed every last human. An elegant bird-like alien from the Solari delegation spoke. Her feathers were blue and gold. War leader, surely you exaggerate. No species fights to extinction. Survival instinct eventually takes over. Does it? Kreeth asked. He gestured at the hologram, which changed to show more images from human history. Look at their past. Humans have a concept they call fighting to the last man. They have done it repeatedly throughout their history. Small groups refusing to surrender even when completely surrounded. Warriors defending positions until they all died. Not because surrender was impossible, but because they chose death over yielding. The hologram showed various historical battles. Ancient fortresses under siege. Modern military units making last stands. Each image showed humans fighting against impossible odds. This is not rare behavior for them, Kreeth continued. This is honored behavior. They tell stories about such fighters. They build monuments to them. They teach their children that this is how you should act when something important is at stake. Surrender with honor is foreign to them. They prefer death to dishonor. They prefer sacrifice to safety. Ambassador Sarix, the old Dracon, spoke again. But war leader, this sounds like a species with a death wish. Surely such behavior would have eliminated them long ago. That is what you would think, Kreeth agreed. But remember, they evolved on a death world. Their survival as a species required this trait. When a predator attacked their tribe, they could not all run. Some had to fight, to buy time for others to escape. When famine came, some had to sacrifice so others could survive. Their entire evolutionary history rewarded those who would fight hopeless battles to protect the group. He paused again, his glowing eyes sweeping across the assembled aliens. And now they carry that trait into space. They carry it into diplomacy. They carry it into every aspect of their civilization. Look at Corporal Hayes standing there. He is not special. He is normal for his species. There are millions just like him. There will be billions like him in the future. A small, furry creature from the Paxian delegation stood on its seat to be seen. If they are so dangerous, should we not act now? Should we not limit their expansion before they become unstoppable? The chamber erupted again in argument. Some species agreed with the Paxian. Others argued against aggression. The noise grew louder. Kreeth's roar silenced them all. That is exactly the kind of thinking that would doom us all, he said angrily. If we attack humanity now, we prove to them that the galaxy is hostile. We prove that they must defend themselves against everyone. We unite them against all of us. Right now, humans want peace. They want trade. They want friendship. They are naive in some ways, still believing that goodwill and cooperation can solve problems. The silence lasted for several long moments. Then dozens of species began talking at once. Some argued with each other. Others debated in their own delegation sections. The chamber filled with sound. A mix of different languages and translation devices creating a wall of noise. Danny remained standing on the central platform. He felt completely out of place. He was just a Marine. He followed orders. He did his job. He protected his fellow soldiers. He never thought of himself as representing some kind of universal human trait. He certainly never thought he would be standing in front of alien species being discussed like he was the key to galactic politics. Through the noise, Danny caught fragments of different conversations. Some aliens seemed frightened. Others sounded curious. A few appeared angry, though he could not tell why. The bird-like Solari were having a heated discussion in their section. The insect-like Thaxians were clicking rapidly at each other. Ambassador Morrison made his way down to the platform. He placed a hand on Danny's shoulder and leaned close. "You can return to the waiting area, Corporal. I think you have done more than enough here." Danny felt relief wash over him. He nodded and began walking back up the central aisle toward the exit. As he passed the different delegation boxes, he could feel eyes on him. Some aliens watched him with what looked like fear. Others seemed thoughtful, studying him as he walked by. Near the exit, a small figure stepped into his path. It was a young Quillari, their crystalline body pulsing with soft colors. Danny remembered from his briefing that young Quillari served as aides to learn diplomacy. "Excuse me, Corporal Hayes," the Quillari said in careful English. "May I ask you a question?" Danny stopped walking. "Of course. Are humans really without fear? Do you not feel fear the way other species do?" Danny thought about how to answer. He did not want to lie, but he also felt he should represent his species well. "No, we feel fear. I have been scared ever since I walked into that chamber. I am still scared now." The Quillari's body pulsed with confusion. The colors shifted to shades that Danny guessed meant the alien did not understand. Then why do you do these things? Why face fear if you could simply avoid it? Danny smiled a little. Because some things matter more than being comfortable. Some things are worth being scared for. My friends matter. My family matters. My world matters. The idea that people should be free and safe matters. Those things are more important than my fear. The young Quillari was quiet for a moment. Their crystalline body stopped pulsing and became still. Then they bowed in the way their species showed deep respect. Thank you, Corporal Hayes. I think I understand now why War Leader Kreeth respects your kind. Danny returned the bow as well as he could, hoping he did it correctly. Then he continued walking to the exit and back to the small waiting room. When he finally sat down in the chair, his hands started shaking. The adrenaline that had kept him steady was wearing off. He felt exhausted, like he had just run a marathon. An hour passed, maybe 2. Danny was not sure. The door opened and Ambassador Morrison entered. The older man looked tired but also pleased about something. The Krell have formally signed the treaty, Morrison said. He sat down in another chair. No negotiations, no conditions, no changes. They are withdrawing from all disputed territories and agreeing to fixed borders. Diplomatic experts are calling it the most favorable peace agreement in Council history. Danny looked at his hands, which had finally stopped shaking. They are doing this because they fear us. Morrison was quiet for a moment. Then he shook his head. Kreeth told me something privately after the session ended. He said fear was not quite the right word. He said the Krell respect strength. They have built their entire culture around it, and they recognize that humanity has a kind of strength they have never seen before. What kind of strength? Danny asked. The strength to keep going when logic says to stop, Morrison explained. The strength to care about principles more than personal survival. The strength to be terrified and still do what needs to be done. Kreeth said that in 3,000 years of Krell history they have conquered hundreds of species, but they have never met anyone quite like us. Danny thought about this. I do not feel strong. I feel like I barely held it together in there. Morrison smiled. That is exactly the point, Danny. You were terrified. Anyone looking at you could see the fear. But you stood your ground anyway. You did not run. You did not hide. You faced down one of the most powerful warriors in the galaxy and did not blink. That is what impressed them. But that is just what you do, Danny said. That is what anyone would do in that situation. No, Morrison said gently. That is what humans do. Apparently, it is not what everyone else does. Most species, when faced with overwhelming fear, follow their survival instincts. They flee or they surrender. We do not always do that. Sometimes we stand and fight even when fighting makes no logical sense. Danny was quiet. He thought about the Marines on that ship, the one Kreeth had talked about. 12 people facing impossible odds. He had known some of them. Good people, brave people. They had fought to protect Earth, even though they knew they would die. At the time, Danny had thought it was just what Marines did. Now he wondered if it was something deeper, something that made humans different from other species in the galaxy. What happens now? Danny asked. Morrison stood up and stretched. Now the summit continues. Other species are negotiating their own agreements. Territory disputes, trade routes, defense pacts. The usual diplomatic work. But the big threat, the possibility of a major war with the Krell, that is over. And it ended because you walked into a room and refused to show weakness. I was weak, Danny said. I was scared the whole time. The peace summit continued for 3 more weeks. Danny watched from the sidelines as ambassadors from different species worked through complicated agreements. Territory lines were drawn and redrawn. Trade agreements were negotiated. Defense pacts were formed. It was slow, careful work, but progress happened. What amazed Danny most was how his presence had changed things. He did not do anything else. He just walked through the station, ate in the public dining areas, and occasionally attended sessions as part of the human delegation. But other species noticed him. They saw a regular human soldier going about his day, and that seemed to affect their thinking. Several smaller species that had been afraid to stand up to larger empires suddenly found their courage. If humans could face the Krell without backing down, maybe they could defend their own interests too. The Paxians, those small furry creatures, successfully negotiated better trade terms with the Virex. The Thaxians secured protection for their colony worlds. Ambassador Morrison explained it to Danny one evening. You became a symbol without meaning to. When species see you, they do not just see one marine. They see what humanity represents. The idea that being small or weak does not mean you have to surrender. That standing up for yourself is possible, even against stronger opponents. I did not do anything special, Danny said for what felt like the 100th time. That is what makes it powerful, Morrison replied. You are ordinary. That means every human is potentially like you. It means we are not a species of a few heroes and many cowards. We are a species where even the ordinary person will stand and fight when it matters. 3 weeks after his appearance before the council, Danny finally received orders to return to Earth. The summit was winding down. Most of the important agreements had been signed. His presence was no longer needed. On his last day at the station, War Leader Kreeth requested a private meeting. Danny was nervous about it, but he could not refuse. He met the Krell commander in a small conference room, with Ambassador Morrison present as well. Kreeth stood when Danny entered. The Krell was even more impressive up close. His scales were scarred from countless battles. His eyes still glowed with that inner fire. But when he spoke, his tone was respectful. Corporal Hayes, I wanted to speak with you before you departed. What I said in the council chamber was true. You and your kind are like nothing the galaxy has seen before. But I want you to understand something important. Danny stood at attention, listening. The Krell respects strength, Kreeth continued. We have built our civilization on it. For thousands of years, we believed we were the strongest warriors in existence. Then we met humanity and we learned we were wrong. Not because you are stronger in body, not because your weapons are better, but because you possess something we do not have. What is that, sir? Danny asked. The willingness to lose, Kreeth said. The Krell fight to win. We calculate odds, we assess risks. We retreat when necessary because we want to fight another day. You humans fight for something beyond victory. You fight for ideas, for people you love, for principles you believe in, and you will accept death if that is what those things require. He paused, his 4 arms folding across his massive chest. This makes you dangerous in ways that pure physical strength never could. An enemy who is willing to die is an enemy who cannot be threatened. An enemy who cares more about protecting others than surviving cannot be reasoned with through fear. The Krell finally understand this. Some species in the galaxy will see this as weakness. They are fools. It is your greatest strength. Danny did not know what to say. He had never thought about it in those terms. Kreeth extended one clawed hand. I wanted to meet you as a person, not just as a symbol. You conducted yourself well, Corporal Hayes. Your species should be proud of you. Danny shook the Krell's hand carefully. The scales were warm and surprisingly smooth. Thank you, sir. I was just doing my duty. Yes, Kreeth said. That is exactly my point. 2 days later, Danny boarded a transport ship heading back to Earth. The journey took a week. During that time, he had a lot to think about. He had gone to the summit thinking he would just stand in a room for a few minutes and then leave. Instead, he had somehow become the face of humanity to the galactic community. When he arrived back on Earth, he expected everything to return to normal. He was wrong. News of what happened at the summit had reached home. Every news service wanted to interview him. Political leaders wanted to meet him. He was offered promotions, medals, and assignments to prestigious positions. Danny turned down most of it. He finished his term of service in the Marine Corps, working as a regular soldier. He did not want fame or glory. He just wanted to do his job and then move on with his life. 3 years after the summit, Danny left the military. He went to college using his military benefits. He studied education and became a teacher at a high school. He taught history and government to teenagers who mostly did not care about either subject. Years passed. Danny got married, bought a small house, and started a family. He became the kind of person he had always wanted to be. Ordinary, normal, happy. One day, when his daughter was in middle school, she came home excited. "Dad, we learned about the Peace Summit today in history class. The teacher said a human marine walked into the council chamber and scared the entire Krell Dominion into signing a peace treaty. Is that really what happened?" Danny smiled. "It is more complicated than that. The Krell were not scared exactly. They just understood that fighting humanity would cost more than they wanted to pay." "But you were there, right? Mom said you were at the summit." "I was there," Danny admitted. "What was it like? Were you scared?" Danny thought about that day, standing in the council chamber with hundreds of aliens watching him. The fear that had filled his chest, the desire to run, the decision to stand firm anyway. "Yes, I was scared, very scared." His daughter looked confused. "But you did it anyway?" "Sometimes the right thing to do is also the scary thing to do," Danny explained. "Being brave does not mean you are not afraid. It means you do what needs to be done even though you are afraid." "Is that a human thing?" his daughter asked. Danny smiled. "Maybe it is. Or maybe it is just the right way to be, no matter what species you are." Throughout the galaxy, the story of the human marine at the Peace Summit became legend. Different species told it in different ways. Some versions were accurate, others were exaggerated, but they all captured the basic truth. Humanity had walked onto the galactic stage and shown what they were made of, not through conquest or technology or threats, but through the simple act of standing firm in the face of fear, of refusing to back down when principles were at stake, of being willing to sacrifice for things that mattered. The Krell Peace Treaty held. Other species learned to respect humanity, not as conquerors, but as people who could be trusted to stand by their friends and stand up to their enemies. Human colonies expanded slowly but steadily. Earth became a center of trade and diplomacy. And through it all, billions of humans went about their lives, most of them never knowing that they carried within them the same quality that had impressed the entire galaxy. The quality that Danny Hayes had displayed without even realizing it. The ability to be afraid and to act anyway. The refusal to quit when things mattered. The willingness to sacrifice for others and for ideas greater than themselves. It was not a special gift. It was not genetic engineering or advanced training. It was just part of being human, and it turned out that was enough to change the galaxy. Danny Hayes lived a long, quiet life. He taught thousands of students. He raised his children. He grew old with his wife. When he died at the age of 83, his funeral was simple, attended by family and friends and former students. But on a dozen worlds, in 100 alien cultures, the story of the human marine who walked alone into the council chamber was still told. Parents told it to their children. Leaders invoked it in speeches. Soldiers studied it in military academies. Not because Danny Hayes was a great warrior or a brilliant tactician or a powerful leader, but because he was an ordinary person who did what needed to be done, despite his fear, because it was the right thing to do. And in the end, that was the most human thing of all. "Being scared and being weak are not the same thing," Morrison replied. "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite fear. Every soldier knows that. But apparently, we humans are better at it than most species realized. Over the next few days, Danny remained on the station. He was not needed for any more demonstrations, but Earth Command thought it would look bad if he left immediately. So he stayed in his small quarters, occasionally walking through the public areas of the station. Other aliens noticed him. Some avoided him, stepping aside when he approached. Others stared openly, studying him like he was a fascinating but dangerous animal. A few approached him with questions, wanting to understand humans better. One evening, Danny sat in an observation lounge, looking out at the stars. A Dracon officer approached and asked if he could sit nearby. Danny agreed. They sat in silence for a while. Finally, the Dracon spoke. His voice was deep and slow. "I fought in the border wars 20 years ago. I have seen many species fight, but I never understood what War Leader Kreeth meant until I watched you in that chamber." "What did he mean?" Danny asked. "That some species survive by being strong. Others survive by being smart. Others survive by being fast or adaptable. But humans survive by refusing to accept that survival is impossible. You are the species that looks at death and says no." Danny did not know what to say to that. The Draken continued. "It is a strange gift. It makes you dangerous, but it also makes you admirable. The galaxy is learning this about humanity. Some will fear you for it, some will respect you, but none will underestimate you again." His voice became quieter but more intense. "But if we threaten them, if we show them that the galaxy sees them as enemies, they will become what we fear. They will militarize completely. They will prepare for war against all of us. And in 50 or 100 years, when they have the technology and numbers to match their fighting spirit, they will remember who treated them as enemies. We will face the very monster we created." Ambassador Morrison stood up. "War Leader Kreeth, humanity does not want war with anyone. We came to the stars hoping to find friends, to learn, to grow. Yes, we will defend ourselves if attacked, but we are not the aggressors here." "I know," Kreeth said. "That is why we are choosing peace. The Krell respect strength. And we recognize that humanity possesses a form of strength we have never encountered. Not physical strength, not technological superiority, but something more fundamental. The strength to endure, the strength to sacrifice, the strength to keep fighting for what you believe in, no matter the cost." He walked back toward Danny. "So I will ask the Council to accept this truth. Humanity is here. They are not going away. We can choose to make them our allies, or we can make them our enemies. But we cannot make them quit. We cannot make them surrender. We cannot break their will. The Krell Dominion chooses friendship. We choose peace. We choose to work with humans, not against them." The chamber was silent. Danny stood at attention, his mind reeling from everything he had heard. "Then I would put myself between you and Ambassador Morrison, sir. Even though I could kill you in seconds?" Danny met the Krell's glowing eyes. "Yes, sir. Even though your death would accomplish nothing? I could simply step over your body and kill your ambassador after you fell. You would still try to stop me?" "I would still try, sir." The chamber erupted. Dozens of different species made sounds of shock, fear, and confusion. Some aliens stood up from their seats, others backed away. The noise was overwhelming. Kreeth raised one of his 4 arms. The gesture called for silence. Slowly, the chamber grew quiet again. "This is what I needed the Council to understand," Kreeth said. "This is why the Krell Dominion is withdrawing all territorial claims. We agree to the proposed peace treaty. We will sign it without any negotiation or changes." The chamber fell completely silent. Everyone stared at Kreeth in shock. The entire chamber was silent now. Everyone listened. "We found 12, Kreeth said. His voice carried something like amazement. 12 human Marines. They had killed more of our warriors than should have been possible. When we finally captured them, we studied everything about them. Their bodies, their minds, their culture. What we learned changed how the Krell see this galaxy. Kreeth walked down from his platform. He moved toward Danny. The Krell was huge, easily twice Danny's size, and probably weighing 3 times as much. Danny wanted to step back. Every instinct told him to run, but he held his ground. "Look at him," Kreeth said to the whole chamber. "This is not a special warrior. He has no genetic enhancements. He is an average human soldier, and yet he stands before the Krell without running. I can see his fear. His heart beats faster. His breathing quickens. His body releases stress chemicals. He is terrified, but he does not move. He does not flee." Danny felt his face grow hot. Being analyzed like this, like he was some kind of laboratory animal, was humiliating. But he kept his expression neutral and continued to stand at attention.